Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile, and we have to talk about probably the first crisis of Lazio in this season. And, things go bad. You get out of the Coppa Italia against Juventus. You lose against Atalanta on Saturday. But I think the worst thing that can happen is spending your Valentine Day with Alasdair McKenzie. I mean, what can I say? I mean, what can I add? I mean, disaster, totally disaster.
I've been waiting at my door all morning for a box of chocolates, maybe some flowers. Nothing, Vittorio. Is it an afternoon delivery I'm getting, or well,
Yet the guy said he couldn't find you. Probably I must spell the wrong Mackenzie and got it to someone else.
it's impossible to spell my name wrong, so that
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Alistair, at least you didn't watch live Lazio Atalanta. Uh,
Well, can I just come in very before you say anything? If it had just been me at the stadium on Saturday and you weren't there, what would you be saying in your intro right now?
Well, in fact, I wanted to add that imagine we lost 2-0 without you. With you, it would have been 6-0 for Atalanta. So,
Uh, you've always got away.
yeah, I thought about you when Chiro missed the first chance. I thought he's watching the match, no doubt about it.
No,
But
I mean, I didn't even get a chance to watch it until yesterday. So I was just saying to you before we started that the it's always a bit strange when this happens when you've seen what the result is and you've read a lot of the reaction and seen what people are saying in social media and the rest of it. And from what I read and heard and saw, I thought that the game was going to be a complete disaster, but I don't think it was. Watching it back, having the kind of, I guess, that anxiety stripped away a bit because I already knew what was going to happen. I thought that they actually played some nice stuff, especially in the first half. I think they reacted pretty well to the opening goal. I mean, granted, the first 10 minutes were a complete disaster. Um, but I think that we saw more from Lazio in that game than we have done in previous weeks against Juve, Fiorentina, Verona. I don't think in any of those games Lazio produced the levels that they produced against Atalanta, but ultimately they were just beaten by the better team. I think Atalanta played really well in that match. But you disagree, I think.
well, I mean, Atalanta will always be a team that concedes something, so you will get a couple of chances. But I mean, I don't remember a match where we said, "Wow, they only scored twice. They had like 4 or 5 huge chances, and Provedel made a couple of very good saves." So it could have been ugly, I would say. And yes, I mean, we could be here talking about a completely different match if Cheeto scored in the first half when the score was still 0-0. Uh, I still cannot believe he missed that chance.
Yeah.
But uh, our midfield was destroyed from Atalanta. And again, at Bergamo, we won 2-0 and was probably one of our best performances. And Vecino played instead of Luis Alberto. I thought the starting 11 didn't convince me. I don't know why Lazar is not starting. I don't know why Luis Alberto didn't come off Saturday after a, don't want to say dreadful, but by far not his best match of the season. And
Yeah.
Cataldi again.
Yeah, I thought Cataldi was marked out of the game by Cook Miners. He just was all over him. And yeah, I thought he had a pretty poor game actually. Yeah, again, I mean, it's what I was saying last time. The I think a lot of the problems we're having in attack are down to the midfield not performing as much as the actual forward line. And I was a bit more encouraged with Milinkovic Savic. I mean, look, he made it quite a few mistakes, but he was trying to make things happen. And I think that's the problem we've seen too often is that players are just playing it safe. There's been a few too many kind of sideways passes, or no one's really trying to kind of, create something out of nothing. And I think Milinkovic-Savic, we did see more of that from him on Saturday. I think that the Chiro chance you talk about, that was ultimate. That was like old Inzaghi style football. It was
Yeah.
launching it from the keeper up to Milinkovic just because he can take it out of the air on his chest like that and set him up. Chiro probably should have left it for Milinkovic-Savic, actually. Maybe that was partly what put him off because they were both going for the same ball. But yeah, I think there was more creativity in that. I think that's what I'm talking about. You're right in terms of
I'm
Atalanta
always
had a
right.
lot of chances and it could have been worse. But I think more because the greater concern for me recently has really been in the attack and just our total lack of danger. And it's strange to say in a game we failed to score in, but I just feel like there was a bit more creativity from the side yesterday.
Our friend Arif Ramadan Akbar asked us, we have been firing blanks in Chiro's back. What's your thought about this? Um, Obviously, Chiro is not at his best, but I would argue that even with Chiro, we struggle to score. I think only against AC Milan we score more than 2 goals, right, in a single match without Chiro. So I mean, Chiro is your top scorer. We don't have a Vice Mobile. We said it. I mean, time after time, and never it never happened. So we know that without Chiro, this team have issues scoring. He's our main striker, and I think he played better Saturday than the other matches. He needs to get in shape, and that's why I believe Alasdair he's going to play on Thursday, because Thursday we're back at Lazio Cluj, and I think Chiro needs minutes because he needs to get back to his form. But definitely, we don't have a plan B if Chiro is not at his best. So yes, definitely Lazio missed with Chiro's back, not in great shape. We struggle to capitalize all the chances we create.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess the plan B is the Felipe Anderson playing there, and Anderson's probably not been quite as effective since he moved back out wide. Funnily enough, which is a bit strange given that's his natural position, but yeah, he's not been right. I think he does deserve patience to get back up to speed after the injury, but yeah, I think perhaps Sarri should be, more aware of that because I think he's still been picking him for all these games, still been keeping on the pitch for 90 minutes on Saturday night when he's clearly not quite right. And I don't know. I mean, it's an age-old argument about can Lazio can perform without him because we actually did pretty well in his absence. And now the problem being that his return has coincided with a general drop in levels in an attacking sense.
But
I don't think it's as simple as Chiro's back now and we've stopped scoring. I don't think it is. I think the general drop has come from throughout the team actually.
yeah, and we mentioned, right, Felipe Anderson is playing every single game. It's normal that he has a little bit of drop in form. He wasn't as good as we saw it, beginning of January or end of November. He's tired. He's playing a lot. He's playing too much. And again, going back to Plan B, Felipe Anderson is a Plan B, but he's also a Plan A when Chiro's back. He has to play on the winger, so he doesn't get a break, and you can see it. Adding to this, I think Milinkovic-Savic's performance still wasn't great. Cataldi was awful, and that's the reason why we've been struggling. And again, I want to bring some question back because, for example, Oliver Field said Inzaghi didn't. Well, going back to Inzaghi didn't do it. Sarri doesn't, including the new and young players such as Marcos Antonio and Cancelliere. It takes a long time. Is this the pressure at Lazio too big for our coach to take the chances by including unproven player? Atalanta do it with success. Sassuolo and Udinese does it with I still remember the season, the first one with Simone Inzaghi. This was when he played Keita, Anderson, Brian Pereira. I was so excited. No, that was with Ray, I think, with Brian Pereira. Yes, Pereira didn't break through, and it took time for Anderson, but they got a chance. What's your take? Well, what's your take on Maurizio Sarri not giving too many opportunity to a youngster, Alasdair?
Yeah, I mean, um, in this occasion, I don't think it's necessarily a case of not thinking they're good enough, uh, which is encouraging. I think it's more okay if you're going to put them in, who are you taking out? Because bringing in Cancelli, the problem is our two most promising young players both play in the same position on the right wing, and if you're playing one of them, that means you're dropping Pedro Zaccagni or Felipe Anderson. And the way that all three of them have been playing this season, it's hard to make an argument that they really deserve to be dropped for some untested kids, I guess. So I think that's where it's coming from. Marcos Antonio, I think, is more a question of adaptation. And to be honest, Sarri has given him chances. He's given it not as much as we expected, perhaps not as much as we would have liked, but it's quite hard to argue from the evidence we've seen so far that Antonio deserves to be in that team ahead of Cataldi right now. Um, so, I mean, I think if we had, really exciting young fullbacks, for example, they might get in the team. But look, I mean, Casale is not an ancient player. He's been playing all season at centre back. We do have some good young players in there, but I think that he's just being cautious about the integration, and it's not got to a stage this season yet where it's like we can just go hell for leather and give up on our plans and just look at it as a way of blooding young talent for the future because we're right in the middle of a Champions League race still.
Yeah, I agree. But with Cataldi, and he said it after the match, I just had one training, and you start Cataldi even in that situation, and we saw it. He didn't play well at all. Um, and then you switch and you bring in Vecino instead of Marcos Antonio. Again, why did we sign him? I mean, if he's not even playing or coming in from the bench, why did we sign him? I mean, every time he talks about Marcos Antonio, say he's small, he's tiny, etc. Well, it shouldn't be a surprise, right? I mean, you saw it before signing him. It's not like it's like the meme you do order on Wish, order on Amazon, right?
He
You
shrunk on the plane coming to Rome.
Yeah, he shrinked. I mean, you know what you were getting, so you shouldn't be that surprised. This guy played in Champions League against Real Madrid, and now he's not able to play against Verona. Come on. Um, and the other thing, Alistair, is okay. Maybe they are not at the same level at your starters, and I get that. It could be. But at least you give your starter a rest so that they are not destroyed, they're not knackered, they are able to play. Yes, maybe you're gonna lose something, but I mean, you drop points against Verona, not Paris Saint-Germain, with the starters. I don't believe that with Marcos Antonio things would have been dramatically wrong. So this is what I don't understand. And Barry, he doesn't love making huge turnovers, right? He sticks with his 13, 14 players, and that's it. So I guess this is what's happening at Lazio now. This is Maurizio Sarri, right?
Yeah.
Except with Chelsea, the year they won the Europe League, he hardly never rotated, even with Juventus that had a bigger bench than ours, right? So this is the negative side of having Maurizio Sarri.
Yeah, I think that's the bigger point here. It's not so much Sarri not giving a chance to youth as Sarri continuing what he's always done. So I guess you could say the same thing. It's like about, well, you signed Antonio. Why it can't have been a surprise to you that he's going to be small. Well, it shouldn't be that big a surprise to us seeing that Sarri's wanting to use a more limited squad. I think the problem is it's a bit of a contradiction though, because he's continuing to do that while at the same time constantly lamenting how little time he has to train his team, how many games there are coming up over and over again, how this is modern football. Um, so I think he has to. I think this is really the time now. If you look at the fixture list coming up in the next couple of weeks, I think it'd be more frustrated if over the next 2 weeks we don't see a bit more rotation, even these young guys just coming off the bench or whatever. I think that's key. We saw it happening more at the start of the season, but then again, at the start of the season, I think there was definitely an element of still trying to work out where
Yeah.
everyone was, how they fit into the team, what their levels like. And he made those decisions at a certain point, maybe around November, December, and now he's sticking with, like you say, that reduced squad. But it's going to be tough now. Cluj coming up two legs over 2 weeks, Salernitana as well, Sampdoria, and these are all games Lazio on paper should be winning. But I think you're right. I think it's difficult to expect that the same players go and play every 3 days for 90 minutes. As much as anything else in terms of the physical toll that takes, just mentally, like are you still as motivated for every game if you're constantly
Yeah.
playing and it's like the same players around you doing the same thing? Um, I'm not sure. So I think that's the good thing about having these young players on the brink of the squad is that if they do play, they'll presumably be quite fired up for those games and actually be bringing a bit more energy and determination than some of the first team players.
But Alasdair, before moving to other questions, you're talking about young players, but Pellegrini didn't play a minute. Basic didn't play a minute. I mean, these are not really youngsters, right? These are proven players. And I guess you didn't notice, but Saturday night, Basic, Marcos Antonio, Pellegrini, Luca Romero, they warm up like 35 minutes in the second half and they didn't come in. Don't know why. We had still one sub to make, but you can argue. I mean, you cannot argue that Pellegrini is not ready for Serie A. He's been playing in Serie A, 4 or 5 seasons already. So Basic is in the team since last summer. He should be well aware of all the tactics Sarri has, etc. And he's hardly playing. So that's where the disappointment comes. I mean, I agree, and I guess nobody would say, "Hey, start Cancellieri against Atalanta." No, that would be incredible risk. But start Pellegrini. Why not? Give a
Yeah.
chance to Basic. Why not? Right. So this is where I get concerned a little bit about Maurizio Sarri. Now, Cluj is coming next Thursday. To be honest with you, are we expecting Basic to start? No, right? Don't think so. Same thing about Pellegrini. I don't see it happening. Then maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I think that Romagnoli is injured, so he won't play. But apart from that, I can see the pretty much the same starting 11 playing on Thursday.
Well, I did have a quick look at the kind of this morning's probable formations, and there does seem to be an expectation for some reason that the entire midfield is going to be changed to have Vecino, Antonio, and Basic.
Wow.
I don't know what that's based on. Can't really remember what day of the week it is. If there's training sessions that have already happened, I guess there have been. But yeah, I mean that would be quite a bold move. I mean that's a big change. But then again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think since the Milan game, we haven't changed any part of the team apart from the attack. Has it not been the same keeper, defense, and midfield every game?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think clearly that does need tinkered with because it's not just a case. We're not just talking about the players being tired. We're talking about the players not performing. It's based on both things now. It's based on both fitness and form. That I think you need to play other guys. And yeah, okay, we've not been very impressed this season by Basic. We've not been very impressed since the World Cup with Vecino, but I think you still need to use them if you've got them. I mean, that was something we were really hopeful about coming into this season. Let's not forget was the improvement in the squad depth. That was something we were actually really encouraged by after the summer mercato.
And let's be honest, we haven't been impressed by Luis Alberto Milinkovic Savic in 2023. So it's not that they don't play because, hey, Luis Alberto is playing terrifically well, or Cataldi is unbelievable. No, above average. I mean, Cataldi played badly the last two games. You can see he's tired. You can see he's a little bit injured. So give other players a chance. I mean, again, if these players are not able to play against Verona, I mean, when are they going to play? Now, Thursday there's Cluj and then there's Salernitana. I expect a little bit of turnover in these two coming games, but yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if nothing happened. So, Alasdair, to move on with another argument, we have a friend from Sweden, Labinot Gashi, hope I pronounce it well, who's asking news about Lotito, Tare versus Sassari debate. What's Curvanor public view on this? As I don't speak Italian, I tend to miss info. So, do you want to give him, our friend, an update on the situation, Tare versus Sarri?
Well, it seems to me that they're constantly being kind of prodded by journalists to try and reignite some sort of argument about the whether or not the Champions League is a game is a realistic aim. Sorry, losing my words here.
Too tired.
But I think it comes down to the same thing, which is, and I think the whole thing was very overblown. But Sarri does have a point. Essentially, the point he's making is, yes, we can do, and we should aim to do that. But there are teams who have better equipped squads to do that. I don't think that is a controversial opinion. I think it's fairly reasonable, but it's just created some sort of storm. And obviously, then Tari responding to that himself in an interview doesn't help that either. But I don't know. I mean, you kind of theorized a little bit a while ago that that Tari Tari and Sari might not see eye to eye because of the kind of transfer window as well.
Yep. Well, now there are argument that Sari wanted Avice Immobile and said he got a left back. So there have been argument that this summer Sari pushed to have his player signing. It looks like last week Messaggero reported that Sari asked Lotito to sack Tare and get Giuntoli instead as a sport director. So there are a lot of rumors, but then you get, like I was reading yesterday, that after Lazio Atalanta, the three of them had a chat after the match at the Stadio Olimpico. Yesterday, I was reading that Lotito proposed a 3-year renewed contract for Iglitare. So, I mean, if your manager is not happy about your sport director, you usually don't offer him 3 years, a new contract of 3 years, right? So there are a lot of question marks. And, you know, it all came out after Sarri said, well, it's going to be hard to get in the Champions League. And Tari said, well, that's our goal. That's our target. So, again, I agree. It should be our target. But, I mean, let's be honest. We are not the favorite. We cannot say that other teams are worse than Lazio. I was making a video yesterday. Atalanta, not Milan, Atalanta spent 98 million euros last summer in the transfer market. I mean, I don't know how many Lazio fans said, why didn't we sign Højlund? Instead, he went to Atalanta. Well, Atalanta spent 17 million euros on that player. We never spent that much on a player that young, right? I mean, that's the reason. We spent 8 million on Cancellieri. They spent 17 on Højlund. I mean, that's a big difference, right? And only Boga and who was the other one they signed? Demiral was the same amount of money Lazio spent on all the players they signed last summer. So just to give you a comparison, of course, Atalanta's bench is better than ours. They spent much more, like more than twice the money we spent in our summer transfer market. So that's the reason, right? That's why we believe that other teams are better than us. We don't have a Vice Immobile. Atalanta has Zapata, Muriel, Højlund, etc., etc. I mean, Milan is playing without Ibrahimovic. They have Giroud. They have Origi. If if Immobile doesn't play, we are done.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, I agree with parts of that, disagree with others. I don't think it's always about, I mean, football obviously isn't just about how much money you spend. It's not how much you spend, it's how you spend it. And we never spend money and often don't spend it very well when we do. Little wave to Vedat Marici.
Yeah, that's
But
the problem, right? We have little money and we spend it badly. And I want to say
not
something about this.
always, not always.
Not always, but one thing on Vedat Murici, can we say now that he wasn't a bad player? Because he's scoring. He
I think
seemed
we
to,
said that while he was at Lazio. I mean, it's just
yeah,
the wrong player for the style of football. I mean, it's
he
pretty
didn't,
simple.
he didn't, he was the wrong signing for a type of football. That's it. And again, if you spend 80 million euros, 20 million euros on a player, it's usually easier to sell him. We were able to sell Murici after 2 seasons. We still have Durmisi on our back, right? And we paid 5 million euros for Durmisi. So it's better to sign a player for me and spend a lot of money because usually you don't miss out on players and it's easier to resell them. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, just kind of bringing it back to that this part of that question in terms of the fans' outlook. I think because of this, like everyone's very aware of this, aren't they? And the fact that we have had some utterly bizarre signings, and I always go on about Tarry's obsession with wingers, but it is true. You know how he kept signing wingers when we were playing 3-5-2, and it just makes no sense. And Marici just not being the style of player we needed, and stuff that seemed really obvious. Even not, and I'm not even talking about retrospectively. I mean, I think we were saying this stuff when these players are coming in, but obviously there have been some fantastic signings over the years as well for very little money, like Lucas Leiva, Alberto, and Immobile. But yeah, I think there is a frustration with that, and Tare is essentially seen as part of the Lotito inner circle because that's what he is. He's Lotito's right hand man. So I think that when it comes to the majority of the fans, Sarri's always going to win that popularity battle, and they haven't turned on him yet. That's not something that's happening. I mean, look, things aren't. I think people are actually more reasonable than you'd expect. Everyone will get frustrated about performances and bad results, but there's a difference between that and then, calling for your coach to be sacked because you're 2 points off the Champions League spots. I mean, that's not happening. So
Yeah, before answering to other question, Alistair, you mentioned we are 2 points from the Champions League. Honestly, we are 2 points from the third place. We are 5 points, if I'm not wrong, from the second place. So even if Lazio didn't start very well this new year, we only won 2 matches in Serie A. We are not that far away, which is unbelievable, right? We were mentioning we are dropping far too many points. We draw against um, Verona, we lost against Lecce, etc. And then last night, Sampdoria stops Inter, right? Inter drops points against Sampdoria. So we're there. Even if we are not playing great football, even though we are not getting a lot of points, we're still close to the Champions League, which is unbelievable and is still very positive because if we start playing well again, well, we just need a win to get back in the Champions League spot.
yeah, and that's that's all it takes. I mean, you need to recall, that there have been in this space of the last month and a half or something. That's we've already seen that in action because there's a poor start to the year with those bad results against Lecce and Empoli, and everyone's really down on it. And I was saying I don't see how we can finish in the top four if we're dropping points in these games. But then lo and behold, you go on a decent run of winning 3 matches, and you're basically in second place. Obviously, Juve's points deduction has helped with all this, but it's not just that. It's just that all these teams are so flawed. So now we're in a lull again, but we'll probably come out of it sooner, hopefully sooner rather than later, because I do think that 2 point gap, you don't want that getting any bigger, or suddenly it looks very difficult to climb back in there. But I mean, like I've already said, I think this is a unique year, really, where there's so much opportunity for Champions League qualification just on the basis that nobody's playing well apart from Napoli. And it's unusual for You can have some seasons that are higher quality than other seasons, but it's unusual for all the top teams, with the exception of one, to be doing
Yep.
so badly. I think you look at Inter last night drawing with Sampdoria, who are having a dreadful season. So I mean, there's really a big opportunity for Lazio to qualify for the Champions League, even if they're not playing well. I mean, everyone's going to be inconsistent. It's just up to Lazio to be slightly less inconsistent than everyone else.
Yep, I totally agree, and this is incredible, and I think tells you a lot about how bad the Serie A is so far. Um,
Or
Alistair, we
how
have
good, depending on how you look at it.
yeah, if you want to see it that way. We have a question. We already had it a couple of times already, right? Are there any young players at the club who could play in our first team this season? Not sure about that, to be honest. I mean, if Cancellieri doesn't get any play time, I don't think a Primavera guy could. Um, we mentioned a couple of players already. I said Floriani is very interesting. He's a left back. He had a chance. I don't know what happened to go to Pescara on loan. He didn't go. Sana Fernandez, that is only 16 years old. He's already playing with the Primavera. He scored a nice goal yes Saturday against Salernitana. He looks interesting. There are a couple of players, but I don't think they're ready for the first team. Now, one of the reasons is that the gap between Primavera and Serie A, or Primavera and professional football, is so huge that it's very difficult to be ready for the Serie A immediately. So don't think there's a chance. And this brings us to the discussion the under 23, like Juventus did. Juventus has a B team that plays in the Lega Pro third division of Serie A. That could be a solution for these players to play more, to have a chance to play in professional football. I think this is one of the reasons why Lazio is struggling. But the other thing I wanted to mention is this one. Um, this is Lazio summer transfer, winter transfer market. We sign Gonzalez, that we don't know if he's going to be on the first team or not. Then we sign Kunert Bartol from Rudess. I don't know which team is it. And in particular, this player from Parma, Malizeski. I hope I pronounced it right. He's the goalkeeper. They talk really high about this goalkeeper, but there's a thing we have to mention. Lazio has in the Lazio Primavera Magro, that it's a goalkeeper who was starting in the national team in under 16 when he was under 16, and he was really considered a great goalkeeper. So I don't understand why Lazio go and sign a goalkeeper from Parma when you already have a very good goalkeeper on your side. This is a waste of money for me, Alasdair. Uh, Obviously, Magro is still starting. He started all these matches. Don't know why we do this signing. And the other thing, Alistair, is in January we signed this Malizeski goalkeeper, Kunert, that is another player coming from the Primavera, Gonzalez, that I think is going to end in Primavera, and the brother of Keita that was playing in fifth division in Serie A. I don't think that's what our Lazio Primavera should do. We should raise our kids from the young teams and bring it to the Serie A, not sign players from outside.
Yeah,
Oops.
it's just not been working, has it, in recent years? So I don't know, maybe a change of strategy of trying to improve the quality of the youth system just by buying in quality is maybe the way they're going, just as a result of not having been able to, or not having successfully produced many young talents in recent years, and ultimately being relegated to Primavera 2, which is not where you want to be. I mean, like you said, you've there's already such a big gap from the first Primavera division to Serie A that you don't want to end up in the second one, because the you being boosted from that level into Serie A is a crazy jump. And as we've seen with loan moves for the more talented young players, yeah, it doesn't always work out. I mean, it's actually hard to think of any particular loan moves that have been really successful. Even guys who went to relatively big teams like, Luis Felipe at Salernitana or Strakosha and so on, they didn't actually do very well there. They weren't
No.
actually very popular there. And obviously they managed to come back and do well at Lazio, but that wasn't really a result of, having excelled on loan. So yeah, it's difficult. I think they're trying to work out the best way of doing it. I mean, I said last time though that I am encouraged that they are investing in youth though. And going back to that question of who's most likely, it has to be Luca Romero. I mean, Sarri clearly likes him, clearly thinks he's the most talented of the young players that we've got, and he's the one who's getting game time off the bench more than Cancellieri at the moment. So I think Luca Romero still looks like the greatest beacon of hope for us that we're going to have some sort of exciting young player, even if we're not seeing loads of him.
Yeah, Per Nielsen is asking if players like Romero, Cancellieri, Antonio, etc. is so bad players they cannot even get 5 minutes against bottom table clubs. Who is responsible for scouting them? Those people should be fired first.
I think you're responsible, aren't you, Vittorio?
Ah, I don't take the blame for this. I mean, again, Cancellieri is a big. I like the player, I like the signing, but it's a huge question mark, right? You need a vision mobile, and you sign a right back, a right wing. Why? We have plenty of wingers, and we need a number nine, and we don't get it. I
I don't,
understand there's a good chance of signing, etc., but why? I mean,
yeah, I don't think we need to talk about the scouting of these players having been terrible, because it's not like we've seen them and they've been completely miles off the ability needed. It's just that, like we said before, Sarri's not wanting to rotate his team that much. But we do need a bit of patience with this. I don't think it's the end of the world if Antonio needs a full season before he feels confident and in charge of that midfield in Serie A level. Likewise, Luca Romero's still what? Is he 18 yet? I think he might just be 18 now, but he's so
yeah.
young. So we do need a level of patience with this. Cancellieri's signing was a bit stranger because obviously it felt a little bit rushed. It was supposed to be, or they were trying to convince us it was as a Vice Mobile, and then they gave up on that after about 45 minutes. But yeah, but I just think with these guys, you do need a level of patience to go with it. I don't think after 6 months you can start saying fire the scouts because they're terrible. They're not terrible. They're just not getting as much of a chance as we'd like them to. But they may do in the future.
To answer to Pierre, I don't think we have scouts, so we cannot fire them. He started doing everything on his own. So yeah, uh,
I'd
or you
say
find
one thing to add. Sorry, one thing I was just going to add as well is that a difference here from previous years, having just talked about Johnny and Maurizio and those kind of players, so that at least these guys do fit the football. Cancellieri and Romero, forgetting about the Vice Mobile thing, they are both wingers who can play in a 4-3-3 naturally. Marcos Antonio is a playmaker who can sit in the midfield three very naturally. They do actually make sense in this system in a way that previous signings didn't. So that's good.
yeah, I agree on you on this, and they're younger than Murishi and
Yeah.
especially Johnny, so that they can go on. They can be very useful. Alistair, before you drink everything else, let's talk about conference. Thursday is a very important match, or are you one of the people that say, "Hey, we have to get out of this as soon as possible and focus only on the Serie A"?
No, I think we need to go for it. I mean, obviously, people aren't very excited because we've only sold about 7,000 tickets, I think. But yeah, I think we should go for this and give it a proper good go because it's a chance to win a European trophy, and there's still some pretty decent teams left in it. There's some exciting potential ties coming up. What's this?
Yeah, you know that the Distinti Nord will be called the Campanile sector. I don't know if you can see it.
Your
The
entire row.
this is completely green, and the one in circle are my tickets. So you can see it here. So these are my tickets, 7, because I'm bringing all the family, and this is all the rest. These are my friends coming up. So you see, it's all empty except for me and my friends. I mean, this is ridiculous. We are recording on Tuesday. The game is in 2 days, and except the Campanile family, there's no one in Distinti Nord.
I mean, I do think they've made ticket prices a bit undesirable, haven't they? Is that not part of it? I've not actually looked at it yet, but I just read something about that.
So I spent like €5 for my kid,
Oh,
and
really? Okay,
15 for the others. Come on,
that's not
it's
bad.
an European competition. I can understand everything, but come on, guys.
I
It's
do hope that round on round, the anticipation would build a bit. As like if we manage to get through this round, then you're actually like progressing in the competition into serious rounds. Then that's hopefully builds a bit more excitement about it. Um, so yeah, but no, I mean to answer your question, yeah, absolutely. And like touching back on something from right at the start of this podcast, money and Lazio's lack thereof. If you make it all the way to the final and win it, you get over 20 million euros. So it's a serious amount of cash still. It's not as much obviously as the other European competitions, but for Lazio, that's one Vedat Murici we can get for this. So
Alasdair, I was thinking this is your present for Valentine. Do you like it?
yeah, it's okay.
I mean, we have to talk about Lazio with Mitsuno doing something better, right? In the merchandising. I mean, it's not bad with the signing of all the players, right?
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah,
48 euros.
yeah. So this could be your San Valentine present.
Okay, well, I'll be waiting. Be
Yeah.
waiting for the postman.
I just have to write Mackenzie correctly this time. Maybe
Yeah,
things will be different. Anyway, are you going to the match, Alistair, on Thursday?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. I'm planning
Okay.
to.
Okay, let's see. Anyway, guys, thanks again for joining. Forgot to ask, Alistair, do you have something else to say or you're good?
No, I'm done. No more words.
So, guys, thanks again for listening. And obviously, remember to rate and subscribe our podcast, please, if you enjoy it. Obviously, follow us on our social account, in particular on Twitter. We tend to be more active there. Alistair lost something very important, so I will hide him. And yes, please rate and review the podcast. If you have questions about Lazio, you know where to find us. I know a lot of guys try to contact me for tickets and things like that. So yeah, drop us a message on Twitter, and we'll be back next Monday if Alistair hasn't got anything else to do to talk about. Don't cry, Alistair. Please keep up. And yeah, we'll be back as soon as possible. So probably next week. And enjoy Lazio Cluj and Salernitana Lazio. Take care, guys.